Hi, this is Emily Swallow, and you are listening to the FSF podcast.
The show that lets the Mandalorian earn more bounties by killing our jokes.
Our show is brought to you by our charity sponsor, the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund, which supports the Wish Upon a Teen Foundation that helps out sick kids when they need it most. And just imagine the comfort you'll give Red Shirt crewman number 1138. She'll know that when she puts on the red shirt and joins the armor in the search for the lost tribes of Mandalore, that they didn't leave her family destitute and without hope, because the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund has her back, and what's left of her helmet, because this is the way.
And now, a word from our show sponsor, Level Up Savory. Their link can be found in the show notes.
All right, so our guest today is known for her work as Amara on Supernatural, Lisa on Castlevania. Maybe you've seen her as Natalie on SEAL Team, or maybe you've seen her hidden face as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. We are so very excited to welcome Emily Swallow to the FSF podcast. Welcome to the show, Emily.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, very, very excited. We've been kind of nerding out about this one for a couple of weeks. We're like, oh my God, she's actually going to come to the show.
I would never.
Yeah, we did. But all of us for different reasons. I'm the huge Star Wars nerd of the group. So anything Star Wars related that I can get to come to the show, it's like a kid in a candy store, just like, we're going to talk Star Wars. So,
See, and I mean, of course, I was excited about the Star Wars aspect, and then I looked at her IMDb, and then I did the, and she was in that, and she was in that, and she was in
yeah, we're all kinds of excited to talk about some nerd stuff with you. But before we get to the nerd stuff, I noticed that on some of your social media, you've been posting a lot about your theater work and shows like King Lear and I'm hoping to pronounce this one right, Palmyra. From what I understand, you kind of got your start in the theater work. So maybe I'm wrong, but if you could explain to us, what is it about the theater work that you enjoy versus television and film acting? And what's been your most rewarding theater experience?
Oh, golly. You're going to ask me one of those most questions. Favorite questions. Oh, yes, I did start out acting in theater. Well, technically, I started out performing in choir and singing and doing like cantatas and stuff. Which is theater. And I quite honestly, I was very idealistic, and I thought, why would I ever want to do anything except for theater? Why would I ever want to do television? Because I love a live audience, because it's just so exciting that the thing you're performing is happening, and the exchange with the audience is happening right there in the moment. It is happening, even though you're doing the same show every night, the exchange with that particular audience is only happening that night, and it's different every night. And I think that the audience knows, it looks for those moments where, even though the show is scripted, even though the cast knows what performance is going to unfold, the audience is looking for those unexpected moments. They're looking for those moments when somebody goes up on a line. They're looking for those moments that are realer than real, Mm-hmm. And I continue to love to do theater, because it's truly where I think I grow the most as an actor, especially because, when you're doing television, in my experience at least, you don't have a lot of time to rehearse with the rest of the cast, with the director. You do a lot of the work on your own. I do that work with friends. I do it in collaboration with other people, because I hate to be like in a room alone by myself, trying to figure out a character and trying to figure out a script. And, there's a certain amount I do on my own, but then I want to bounce ideas off of other people, and I want to play with things and try different things, so that then when I show up on set, I'm ready to go. But you spend most of the time making the thing rather than finding the thing in rehearsal and shooting the thing. And then the final product is very much up to the, the director, the editor, how how it's going to sound with music, how it's going to look depending on which shots they use. And then you don't know what the audience reaction will be. You don't find out for a while. And sometimes you're very distanced from what your original performance was. And it's a very curious thing. And I find with theater, having that much time to sit with a character, to sit with a script, and to let it seep in subtly, slowly, you discover things that you would never get to discover with the compression of time that happens with television. And it's just delicious. And then you get to try things out in front of an audience and get immediate feedback, which you just don't get when you're, because when you're doing things on camera, you're surrounded by people who are not supposed to react. They have to be very quiet. They have to like kind of ignore you,
right.
Which is psychologically very confusing. And so it's sort of a laboratory, the stage, sometimes too much so, because you also learn that different audiences just have different personalities. Some audiences, because the audience will take on the mood of people around them. And so some audiences may be very, very engrossed in what's going on stage, but they're not very vocal. But you might, as an actor on stage, you might hear that they're quiet and you might think, oh my God, they hate me. We're so overly sensitive. And then some audiences, I know that's shocking to hear. Some audiences may be very loud and raucous, but not really listening that much. They're just responding to like the cheap jokes and stuff. And so you can also get way too sucked into just wanting to get that immediate audience reaction. And it's intoxicating to have the audience right there with you. So I love the in the moment learning of it and the in the moment exchange with the audience. And then especially with these conventions that I've gotten to do, I've really appreciated that gives me that, it sort of closes the loop of the storytelling for a lot of the television that I do that I don't normally get, because I don't have that exchange with the audience, since the medium is camera and I'm not sitting there with the audience in front of me. But that's really been the joy of the conventions, is getting to have that exchange with the audience finally.
I love live theater. Live theater is like the absolute best. Being both on stage, having been on stage and being in the audience, I love the give and take that you have. I can't imagine trying to perform to cameras then it's these people are watching me, but they're not watching me.
Yeah,
like that would be weird.
It's weird. In some ways it's cool, because you do have that freedom to try things without the pressure. There's sometimes more freedom because you're not worried about like getting it quote unquote right.
Mm-hmm.
And you can try a few different things and then they're going to choose whatever take works best. And that's very liberating. You also don't have to find something that you're going to have to do repeatedly over and over and over again. So you can find something in the spontaneity of that moment and you don't have to worry about rediscovering it ever again. Mm-hmm. And that's exciting. Because that can be a challenge too. I've never done a run of anything that's longer than maybe 3 or 4 months, but I look at people who do these shows for, years at a time. And I don't know how you find the spontaneity every night. It becomes a different thing. And you talk to people who've done something for so long that they start to forget their lines because it goes to a different part of their memory. And they've had it in there for so long that they start to forget it. And that's just like, I don't think I could do a long run of something.
Yeah, that makes sense. That would be difficult.
Yeah.
So obviously this is a nerdy podcast. We're all nerds, but we are also dog people. We are pet people. I laughed so hard when I found your dog's Instagram.
This is Norma Jean.
Hi, Norma Jean.
Hi,
Poppy.
I'm Norma Jean.
I am Norma Jean, and I am completely unimpressed.
This is Arthur Miller, and he's only 6 months old.
Oh my goodness.
I love the names, by the way.
That was one of the things I wanted to talk about, is that I love their names, because pets deserve the strangest of names.
Mm-hmm.
I have a dog named Zoe Jane. She's named after 2 characters from Firefly.
Love it.
I have a cat who is Nymeria Patrice. So she's a direwolf, and then Patrice from How I Met Your Mother.
Interesting combo.
I just got that combination. Okay.
Yes. Well, because it was we named her Nymeria, and then she kept howling all the time. So I started yelling, "Nobody asked you, Patrice," at her. So, which is just mean, nice. But it stuck. And then our other cat is Ernest Fitzgerald. So
wow,
they need good names.
Yeah,
too. And so I was scrolling through your dog's Instagram and laughing about their names and their interactions. And I am glad that you already showed them to us, because that was going to be one of the things that I asked. But what is your inspiration for their names? Because those are just fantastic.
Well, my husband and I knew that we wanted human names for our first dog that we got, because we just think that that's amusing. And when we got Norma, she had this little white spot right here that looked like a beauty mark. And so we called her Marilyn for maybe 3 hours, and we decided she wasn't a Marilyn. So we went with Norma Jean, Marilyn's original name. Mm-hmm. And then we had a friend who had been begging us to name her Mr. Meatballs, even though she was a girl. And we didn't want to go that far, but we did add the meatballs to her name. Partly because my husband and I both, when we were kids, had dogs that had food as part of their names. So we thought that we should, pay homage to that. So she's Norma Jean Meatballs. And then we knew at some point we wanted to get her a friend, because she's super social, which is great. She gets along. She grew up in New York City. She's been around other dogs all of her life. She loves other dogs, which in some ways is great, but in other ways is exhausting, because on a day when she doesn't get to be around other dogs, she drives us crazy. We live in Los Angeles now in an area called Topanga, which is not where we don't get out around other dogs as much. So if we can't take her to the dog run or take her to doggy daycare, she gets really frustrated and makes it known.
Poor baby.
Yeah.
So we knew we wanted to get her a friend, and we quickly decided that if we did get a boy dog, it was going to have to be one of Marilyn's husbands. We just didn't know which one. So I'm sorry?
So there's a couple to choose from.
Yeah. So we've been looking at, we wanted to get a rescue, and we found Arthur on Pet Finder when he was he's only 6 months old. We just got him 2 months ago. It's sort of rare to find a puppy rescue.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, his name was Baby Yoda.
Oh,
funny.
It was come on.
How do you say no to that?
Yeah.
The stars have aligned.
Totally. And I think, he just must have, there's lots of maybe more dogs than usual because of all the dogs that got adopted during COVID that then people didn't want. But his story was that he had been purchased, and then the baby of the house was allergic to him. So he was very quickly given up.
That's hard.
So we got him from his foster family. We did not keep the Baby Yoda, but for a while we were juggling between Joe DiMaggio and nice. Arthur Miller. And even though he was not a husband of Marilyn, John F. Kennedy was in there just because, just going to the dog run and being like, John F. Kennedy, get over here. It'd be very amusing.
Could have
called
him
Jack. But then it was also sort of sad because, and there's also Jackie Kennedy, and that's
too many dogs.
A bummer. But Arthur, calling him Arthur just made us smile. So he became Arthur Miller, and he's the perfect playmate for her. I mean, he drives her crazy sometimes because he's a puppy, but she likes to play rough, and he is not at all dissuaded. He takes a licking and keeps going back for more.
Did I see too that he scratched her cornea or something too?
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw the pictures of her with the cone of shame on.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
Oh, that's happened. Yeah. They play rough, and apparently he scratched her eye and scratched her cornea. And so she had, on the 4th of July, we had to take her to the emergency vet and get her special eye drops and.
Oh no, poor pup.
Poor baby.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. I don't know. The names are fantastic, and knowing the story behind the names just makes me love them that much more. That much
That's
more.
great.
Like as soon as you said Marilyn, and I'm like, oh right, Norma Jean.
Yeah.
That makes sense. My mom has 2 cats, and they're Cyrano and Roxanne. But he's Cyrano de Bergerac.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's brilliant.
Because he's a black and white cat, and his nose is black, so it looks like his nose is much larger than it actually is.
I love that.
I love it too. And then we found Roxanne on the street as this teeny tiny little handful, like tiny little kitten, upper respiratory infection to the point where her eyes were like sealed shut, running around in the street. My husband put the car in park, like threw the hazards on, jumped out, grabbed this kitten, brought her into the van. And it's like that she weighed less than a pound.
Oh my goodness.
And was just in the streets in the middle of Saginaw, Michigan. I'm like, this is not okay. This is not where a kitten belongs.
Yeah.
So now she lives with my mom, and she's a spoiled house cat.
Oh.
There you go.
Very spoiled house cat.
So we all have something that is near and dear to our hearts. Is there a project that you worked on that is less known, that is close to your heart?
I mean, I feel like most of the theater that I've done winds up not being well known. I did this play I've done a few plays at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And there was a play called Nice Fish that was co-written by Lewis Jenkins and Mark Rylance. Mark Rylance, the actor. And Mark directed it with his wife, Claire. And Mark was also in it. And he has, for a long time, been like one of my bucket list actors to work with. And so I got to work on this brand new play that we sort of helped write as we were rehearsing. And there were parts of the show that we improvised every night. And it was just so much fun. I was playing this Norse goddess Freya, and the premise, it was sort of like a Waiting for Godot of these two Midwestern ice fishermen who were out on the ice of a frozen lake on I think it was the last day of ice fishing season. So, they got to catch a fish. And if you've ever been ice fishing, it's super fast paced.
Miserable.
Yeah. And then into their lives is blown this hut, this ice hut. And it's a sauna. And out walks this, they don't know she's a goddess, but this Norse goddess. However, she's actually been kidnapped by this sort of redneck. Can you be a Midwestern redneck?
Yes. All three of us live in Michigan. We know that they exist.
Yeah. I'd go grab my neighbors, but they don't believe the internet exists. So
my neighbor's out there with his big old H3 Hummer. Yeah, they exist.
Fantastic. So yeah, he's like this snowmobile, and he's also a god, but it was inspired sort of by the ring cycle. Like, because there's this part of the ring cycle where Freya gets kidnapped, but you don't ever know where she goes. And so Mark was like, well, I wonder where Freya went. And so it's like these two podunk fishermen, and they get tangled up with these gods, and Freya is like living with humans for the first time, but really all she wants to do is throw birthday parties, and they're on a frozen lake, and like, it's just madness. And it was so much fun. And I was working with like one of the actors that I admire the most in the world, and really seeing, I mean, he is absolutely a genius, but I also got to see, oh yeah, he also just like works really hard and is really thorough at like all of the basics that everyone should be doing, but often like just skips over because we think like, oh, but that's so basic, I don't need to do that. And it was just phenomenal. So that's something that is near and dear to me for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think you just identified 3/4 of my neighbors, rednecks and snowmobiles. But all right.
I've been to your neighborhood, so yes.
It's pretty accurate. One of the things I love personally about the Star Wars community is the attention to detail when it comes to cosplay.
Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah, some of these guys, and you see it way more than we do. So we have a Facebook group right now. It's just a little bit over 204,000 members, and we have all these memes every day, just kind of getting. And some of the memes are or pictures of people.
What's your group called?
The Funny Science Fiction Facebook.
Oh, okay. Group. So
yeah. And so we either get memes about different mashups and sci-fi, or we get pictures of people in their cosplays, and it's just phenomenal, some of the things we've seen. But with your character in The Mandalorian, the armor has drawn some fans who are really getting into cosplay. Phenomenal stuff. I mean, some of it looks like if they screen accurate, like they got it right down to the nuts and bolts of everything. And so that's one of the things that I have grown to love about the Star Wars community. Even though I personally don't do cosplay, I think cosplay is amazing, and then the lengths that people go through it. So for you, what has been one of the things that you have grown to love about the Star Wars community?
Oh my gosh, there's so much joy. And you bring up the cosplay, and that makes me think of the 501st and the Rebel Legion and the Mandalorian mercs. And that has become my favorite part of the conventions now, is going to find wherever they're set up, whoever's representing them, and making sure that I get to talk to them and take like a group picture with them. Awesome. And then hopefully getting my little challenge coin and my badge, and collecting all of those. And I had no idea. And it's so incredibly humbling because, I wear this amazing costume, but it had nothing to do with making it. And you wouldn't know that based on the questions that people ask me about my costume. They think I know a lot more than I do about it. But I had nothing to do with making it. I can, however, tell people, because there seems to be a lot of confusion about my costume really didn't change between The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. There's minor differences, but I think people think that there was a whole like color overhaul. So for all of the cosplayers out there who are building the armorer, very minor differences. I wouldn't worry about it. It's the same colors. There was nothing that was like redone really. So you can, if you built one for season 1 of The Mandalorian, you don't have to redo it. But I love seeing all of the charity work that's done and all of the outreach. I just think that I had no idea that this world existed. And the fact that people are so good at making these elaborate costumes and they're going out and saving the world. I mean, I'm just blown away.
And they're so good at making it. They're so good at making it that then Disney is hiring them to be in shows in their cosplay armor. Like that's just...
They've been in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. To have all the stormtroopers from the 501st come in and do that in some of the episodes in season 1. And I was just like, how cool is that your hobby that you have put all this time and money and investment in, the payoff that you get from that is that even though your face may not have been seen, you got to be part of this really super awesome, cool Star Wars thing. And for me, I would be giggling every single day. I'd still be giggling. I would just be like, I'd be like, hi, I'm Tim. I was in The Mandalorian. Yeah. Episode 5, 15 minutes, 17 seconds. That's where I'm at. Stormtrooper. I'm the third stormtrooper in. That would be me. Yeah. Any elevator speech that I'd ever have to give anytime, anywhere in my life, that would be it. Just here, I print it out on a card. You can remember, go look at it later. So, yeah.
It is the coolest. And like, I feel like those are the best of the Star Wars fans too, are the ones who have made this world so much of their own and left their mark on it in a positive way. Like you said, they're putting on this armor and they're going out and they're doing amazing things with it. The number of times that the 501st visits children's hospitals, or like there's places around here where they'll come to hockey games and baseball games and they'll have Star Wars night at these arenas. And it's like, it's amazing that they do it.
Have you met the HR officer, Imperial officer yet?
No. Has Emily, because she's amazing.
Yeah, there's a woman on TikTok who calls herself the HR Empire, the Empire's HR officer.
Oh, wow.
And she goes around and she's like writing up stormtroopers, for all these different things, and she was at the Star Wars celebration, and she was walking around celebration, she got her clipboard, and she's got, it's fantastic. She is a ton of fun to watch. It's genius, actually. Yeah, we had our very first interview here on the show was with a cosplayer who does Captain Rex from the Clone Wars.
Oh, cool.
And extremely screen accurate, and everything that everything he was wearing. And you talked about the charity work. He talked about some of the things that he went and did. He fulfilled a couple of dreams for kids doing Make-A-Wish type stuff, because they just wanted to meet Captain Rex. That was their dream. That's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And
then he did the Sexy Rexy calendar too.
He did do the Sexy Rexy calendar.
Oh.
That is true.
It's fantastic.
It's very entertaining.
But he did some charity work with that too. That the proceeds from the calendar went to charity work as well. I loved that he did that.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. He's a good dude.
But playing off of Tim's question a little bit, talking about Star Wars, you have now seen people cosplaying as your character. And my mom and I are actually going to be making a Star Wars quilt that has you on it.
Oh, cool.
You're on the fabric, which I think is amazing. So how does it feel for you to have your character be on this merchandise? And do you have an action figure of yourself?
Oh my gosh, yes, I do. It's unbelievable. I mean, and it's not, people say, is it a dream come true? I didn't dream for this. I didn't know that I could dream for something like this, because it's just so out there. It's bonkers. It's so weird and so cool. And yes, I do have multiple action figures now. It's also, that part of it is very humbling too, because these things come out and I don't find out until my dogs are attacking each other. Anna's putting Arthur in his place. I don't find out until one of my friends says hey, did you know that this thing exists? None of the companies that make them tell me anything about them. And actually I will, there's an exception to that, which I will tell you about. But when the first Black Series came out, I got so excited and I saw it, and I wrote to Hasbro on Instagram, and I was like, hey, I play the Armorer. I was wondering if maybe I could get one. And nobody ever wrote me back.
Oh.
Aw. Sad face.
I mean, they probably thought I was lying, but it's so separate. That part of it is so separate from making the show.
Mm-hmm.
However, Sideshow, the company that does the Hot Toys, the 1/6 scale, they're amazing, and they sent me one of those, and they also partner with Rock Love Jewelry, and they sent me this gold armor ring that I have that is very cool. So they've been really great, and they've sent me stuff. And yes, I do. I have my own of all those, and we don't really have a space for all those yet, so they're just sort of shoved in little nooks and crannies. But it's also it's the only thing that I have. Amara doesn't even have. Funko does not make any of the female supernatural characters except for Charlie.
Sad. I mean, Charlie's awesome, but that's
Charlie absolutely deserves one. But it's so weird that nobody else has one, which is something that I'm talking to them about right now.
Awesome.
It's kind of nice having an action figure for a character that is masked, because then you don't ever have to get into the weird thing of does my face really look like that?
Right.
It's weird.
Well, yeah, especially with Funko, the way they kind of distort the face, the big eyes, and yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Wasn't Amara in more episodes than Charlie?
I don't know, but Rowena's been in. I mean,
of anybody, Rowena should have them.
Rowena, Mary.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean,
I just want to say though that if I had a Funko Pop of myself, first off, I would take it out of the box, just so that's clear. But I'd also be
any of your others.
The rest are kept in their natural captivity. But I would sit there and just be like, bink, bink, bink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot even imagine having an action figure of myself. That would be that is so cool.
It's really cool.
It's like, it's so weird. But like you said, is it a dream come true? I didn't know this was possible. Like, how do you dream for something this bizarre?
Yeah, it's not, it's just weird. It's crazy. It's awesome.
And I think too, as a kid, it's something that I wouldn't have dreamed of either, even though I had tons of action figures and played with, WWE, well, they were WWF back then, the wrestling guys and, and all that kind of stuff and GI Joes and things. But I never associated a person with them, just that this was a character. So I wouldn't have thought that, I could be one of those. So I can see the dissociation from that. Absolutely.
But you're on fabric even. Like, that's just, it's cool. I mean, it's totally probably incredibly nerdy that I'm making a Star Wars quilt, but I think it'll be fun.
Well, that fabric is really cool. I have a mask made out of that fabric, and I like that print.
Yeah, I got some really cool ones.
Fabric, or do you have multiple different?
I have other ones. I have there's an original trilogy like stained glass window pattern that's really cool. I've got rainbow Vader heads because that's just funny. Like, it's the Vader mask, but instead of black, it's rainbowed, which I think is just pretty. I've got one that's just got like C-3PO, R2-D2, and Chewie on it. I've got a few. I should have grabbed the other ones, but this was the one I was the most excited about.
So when Mandalorian season 1 came out, we as fans got quite excited about the child. And then we learned the name of the child, which was Grogu. And many fans continued to call him Baby Yoda. So what do you prefer to call him? Grogu or Baby Yoda?
I feel like he's never going to get away from being Baby Yoda. And I remember we, as a cast, we were very specifically instructed by Disney PR to refer to him as the child. We were only supposed to call him the child. And I also remember when they just gave up. And we stopped hearing that because they were like, what are we going to do? People are going to call him Baby Yoda. Forget it.
Yeah. At a certain point, I think he's got to kind of steer into it.
And when you make something that looks like Yoda and you don't tell us his name, we're going to call him Baby Yoda.
We tend to just call him the baby on set. Nobody really calls him Grogu, but also no one calls him the child. They call him the baby.
Fair enough.
I don't know how that started. He's a little older now,
Yeah.
Right.
My 3-year-old yells at us if we call him Grogu. She yells at me that it's Baby Yoda.
Oh, wow.
She is adamant.
Get in line.
Yeah.
She's an interesting child.
She's the best.
You guys are so screwed.
We are so screwed. She is the child
Love
that when young Leia shows up in Obi-Wan and I looked at her with the, oh crap, that's what I'm raising.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, I know what Leia grows up to be. This is good.
Huh.
I am raising a leader. I just have to put up with her until then.
Yes, you do.
The not putting out her fire because she's going to need it someday. It's also turning me gray.
Yes, it is. She's adorable, but she's going to be a handful.
Well, as long as she doesn't tick off some Imperial officer, our planet's safe.
She's got her own lightsaber now. I think we'll be fine.
There you go. So as we mentioned, Emily, we do have a pretty large Facebook group. And a couple of days ago, I put out there, hey, that we're going to be talking with Emily Swallow in a couple of days. Anything that you guys would like to ask of her or say to her. And so I have a couple comments and one question for you.
Okay.
All right. So the first is from a gentleman named Garrett Nobles. He said, just thank her for us, please. I love her delivery for the character. The pride and strength she displays so subtly just makes the character perfect.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And David Teal says, good job, Emily. This is the way. And finally, we have a question from M.H. Calloway, who says, he's curious about backstory. He said, did you come up with a backstory or did they hand you one? Or did you just put on the armor and take it from there?
They did not give me a backstory. And I have come up, she's so interesting to me because sometimes I find it useful to give her some history. And then sometimes I find it more useful to not really attach her to much. because and I've never really felt that way about a character before, but I find with her, she is somebody whose personal history, I don't think, at least from what we've seen of her so far, I don't think her personal history matters that much, because I think that she is working so much in service of the community and of the Mandalorians. And she is more interested. She's so selfless, and she is so representative of kind of their moral center.
Mm-hmm.
She reminds them of that. She reminds them of where they came from. She reminds them what is important to them when they get distracted by the madness that's going on around them. And in that sense, I think she doesn't really let herself get distracted by her personal history. And so, but I also am not interested in making her someone who's completely emotionally detached from anything. I think that things do affect her personally.
Mm-hmm.
I think that she's just, she plays her cards close to the vest. So there have been things that I've come up with for her. Some of those things have changed as they've given me more information about what's happening with her through the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very reluctant to share those things.
That's fine.
But she's interesting that way, because I love coming up with backstory for characters. And I find that she is a character very much in keeping with how George Lucas wrote, how I think he wrote a lot of these like mentor figures. She's very archetypal. And I think that I learn a lot about her through what it is that Din Djarin needs for his journey. Mm-hmm. So I almost like seeing where it is that they're writing for him, where he needs to go. I sort of say, oh, okay, so how can she serve that? This must be what's going on for her, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, it does. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that I agree with Garrett. Two of the things, the qualities that Mandalorians espouse are the pride in their culture and who they are and what they are, but also the strength of being a warrior. And I think that you show that very well with her character and how, how she portrays herself and how she interacts with others inside of her community and things. And she's very proud to be a Mandalorian and working, with the way. And so I think that's pretty cool.
Thank you.
And then she makes a tiny little chainmail.
Oh my gosh.
So cute.
I died when they showed me that. And when we were shooting that episode of Boba, Martin in the props department showed me that little thing, and we weren't quite sure how we were going to shoot the reveal of that. And I love how they did it, because I think it was great that we didn't know what it was until we saw it with Grogu. But we did shoot a scene where I presented it to Din Djarin, and I had to fold it up myself and then wrap it. And so my days of working retail at the Gap came in handy.
Oh my goodness.
But it was so tiny. And I was wearing those enormous gloves that John always calls my mittens. Or sorry, my oven mitts.
Yeah.
And so trying to fold that thing with those big unwieldy gloves was just ridiculous.
I have to say, there was an actual squeal with that is the tiniest little chainmail suit little shirt I've ever seen, and it's so cute. And just like I'm just sitting here thinking about you actually get to work with Grogu. I mean, he's not just 100% CGI. Like there's actually a puppet and a robot, and that's insane.
There's a whole posse that goes with Grogu.
That's like right up there with the, oh my gosh, you have your own action figure. Now it's wait, no, you get to work with Grogu.
Such a diva. He's such a diva.
I can imagine. Always stealing people's cookies.
Yeah. Sometimes he just won't come to set. Like if his eyes are puffy, he's yeah.
I can understand. I get it. So we've talked about one of your other major roles. I mean, the armorer is in a fantastic, spectacular role. But on the opposite end of that scale, you have Amara, who is everything the armorer isn't. So how has your experience been different being on Supernatural as Amara and being on Mandalorian and Boba Fett as the armorer? How vastly different are those characters?
Well, I can use my face, which is nice. You know, in some ways, both of them I find to have a stillness that Emily does not have, which is kind of nice. I realize there's so much power in stillness, and I think both of them are much more patient with gathering information around them than I am. Amara is much less trustful of the world around her, I think for obvious reasons. You know, she was wronged very, very early on. So she comes into the series and literally comes into the world because she's been locked away in a box for all of eternity, already not knowing who she can trust because the one being who she was supposed to be able to trust did her pretty wrong. So she comes with a huge disadvantage, whereas I think that the armorer has a great deal of trust for, you know, she sort of operates with an assumption of trust. And then if people don't live up to that, then she takes appropriate action. See stormtroopers. And Amara definitely needs some anger management help.
Yes, she does.
She could benefit from working with the armorer on that, because that's one of the things that I love so much about the armorer is that she is so patient. I love that fight that we got to see at the end of season 1 was so unexpected and so necessary. You see what she's capable of, and you see that she really waited to use that only when it was absolutely necessary. And that is something incredibly admirable because you know, like that fight. I love that scene in chapter 3 when Paz Vizsla and Din Djarin are getting all, you know, up in each other's grills and it's about to come to blows. And finally she stops it. But, you know, she doesn't do it with force. She doesn't get up in their faces. She's very calm. She uses very few words. And she trusts that will be enough. The armorer is someone who trusts that there will be enough. And for Amara, there is never enough. Right. And I think that's the fundamental difference between the two of them. And you can understand. I also love how they wrote Amara because you can see, and it doesn't justify her actions because she acts very rashly. She acts out in ways that really hurt people, but you can see that it comes from an understandable place because she was wronged very early on. You know, just how you can see the motivations for somebody who acts out in any number of ways.
And like Tim and I had the opportunity to talk to Mark Pellegrino, to Lucifer. And it's that same sort of thing with you realize you're sort of sympathizing with this character that you shouldn't be at all, but you are because you realize what's happened to them, how they were wronged. And this is basically childhood trauma coming out as non-functioning adults. That's Amara was a fun character though.
I loved her.
Even if she did get called Giant Crazy Fart, but that's also just a great nickname. The Winchesters have a way with nicknames. I loved it.
They sure do.
Emily, we love stories and humor. What is a behind-the-scene moment that you found hilarious?
Well, I mean, the whole time when I've shared this before, but that's because I think back to it, and especially like the more comfortable I get wearing the armor, and it is a whole different experience. Like I came back to shoot the Book of Boba Fett, and I had the experience of having seen season 1 of The Mandalorian and knowing how incredible it looked. And that entirely changed how I felt in the armor. Whereas I came in to shoot in season 1 and it felt so weird. And trying to cram, it was like a clown car, trying to cram a whole clan of Mandalorians into my little cave in season 1 to shoot that scene in chapter 3 when everyone's hanging out and Din Djarin comes in with his Beskar, and there's all of us in this dimly lit little cavern, and all of us have like this much vision because of our helmets. Nobody can see to the sides. Nobody can see down. You know, we've got like, I mean, anyone who's done the cosplay knows you've got like the big shoulders. You've got, I'm wearing these big like giant boots. And they're trying to make it look really interesting. So there's all these things sticking up out of the floor. So it's not a smooth surface. There's steps all over. It's uneven. So you're walking around, you're constantly tripping on things. And the armor is supposed to be somebody who walks with grace and dignity and strength. The armor doesn't trip on things. And yet I'm like constantly running into things. And there's this tiny little table, a little like tea table or something that I had in there that looked like it was a very sacred table until you get 2 large Mandalorians in armor who are both trying to sit down at that table at the same time on tiny little chairs. And we realized we couldn't sit at the same time without like we kept just like hitting our helmets together. We were like, oh no, you go first. No, you go first. No, you go. And then we'd hit our helmets again. And then like I would start to go down and I was like, I don't know if there's a chair underneath me. I don't know if it's there. I hope it's there. I'm just gonna keep going. And then eventually I'd find it and I felt like my like knees were up to my face. And it was like, it felt like we were the Three Stooges, all the Mandalorians crammed in there, constantly like hitting helmets. It was an entirely different genre of show if they'd used like all of those takes.
Some of those blooper takes. That would be great. That's awesome.
That was highly amusing, especially because it was supposed to be, it was these somber moments.
Right. Serious and somber, and yet you can't find your chair. All right, Emily, we're at a point in our show where we'd like to take our guests through a little bit of a quiz.
Uh-oh.
So,
I mean, yay!
Yay! All right, so this quiz is called All About Emily. It's 4-question quiz. It's all multiple choice. Now, if you get 3 of the questions correct, we want to send you this book, which is called Custodians of the Cosmos, which was written by our original group founder, Drayton Allen. And it's a story about a young man who joins something quite like Star Trek, Starfleet, but not like Star Trek, Starfleet for litigious reasons. And after he washes out and rejoins, he decides to become a custodian so he can boldly clean up after those who have boldly just went.
Fantastic.
Yes. So if you get 3 or more questions correct, we'd like to send you that book. However, if you get 50% or less correct, remember we mentioned that 200,000 plus group, a lot of memes. We take your picture, we make a meme out of you, and we put you into our group. We call it our fun sequence.
Well, that sounds kind of fun.
Well, we have had people who, even though they've won, say, well, can I still do the meme? And we, it's always done in good taste. It's always, and if you were to get a meme, you'd be in good company. So,
all right.
Are you ready to go through the quiz?
Ready as I'll ever be.
All right. So hopefully these are all accurate because, internet. So here we go.
Yeah.
You made your TV debut in 2006 on what show? Was it Guiding Light, Eureka, or Psych?
Guiding Light.
That was
very
correct.
good.
Number 1. All right. Question number 2. You made your film debut in the movie The Lucky Ones. In what year? 2007, 2010, or 2008?
2007?
No, it was 2008. You might have filmed it in 2007, but
oh yeah, see,
internet.
Yeah.
Yay, internets. All right, 1 and 1.
You hold a bachelor's from the University of Virginia. In what course?
Leaning. Well, in what course leaning?
Underwater basket weaving, Middle Eastern studies, or applied economics?
Middle Eastern studies.
You really wanted to say underwater basket weaving, right?
I really want to do underwater basket weaving, though.
All right, so 2 and 1.
All right, question number 4. Your husband won a Tony Award for Best Actor for which of his performances? Lennon, Come Far Away, or Memphis?
Well, he was nominated for a Tony for Memphis. He didn't win. The show won for Best Musical.
See, internet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna blame the internet for that.
Bonus point because I got to correct the question.
You totally got the question right.
So
the internet got the information wrong.
So you get the win. So yeah, that's 3 correct. We'll send you the book.
I don't mind being the subject of what's the word I'm looking for?
Meme.
A meme?
What's the adjective I'm looking for?
Consequence.
Consequence. When you're making fun of somebody.
The butt of the joke?
I'm just going to keep making this gesture.
As Tim is probably snapping pictures now and using that for a meme.
I feel like a cat a little bit.
I am so. That's not the point.
I'm not shaming. This is going to drive me crazy. Oh, well.
The
You can email me later.
Ridiculing.
Hey, I helped.
I did a thing. I helped.
I did. I'm done now.
Well, Emily, thank you so much for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go to find out more about you and what you're working on?
You can go to Instagram. I'm Biggie Swalls, which is BIGESWALLZ. That's also my Twitter, but I got to be honest, I don't venture onto Twitter much. It frightens me. And on Facebook, I'm Emily Swallow Fans, and I do try to keep up with messages, even when they're from people I don't know, and respond when I can. But sometimes I just don't understand how those messages get organized. So I'm sorry if I don't write you back. I try.
It's Facebook. Nobody understands.
Yeah.
And people should also follow Norma Jean's Instagram because
yes, Norma Jean Meatballs. Also, Arthur Miller's on there. And we just found out when we adopted Arthur Miller, we were told that he was half Boston and half pug. But he's pretty big for 6 months. So I did a doggy DNA test, and we just found out he's 83% pug. And then the next biggest result that we got was pit bull.
Oh,
Nice.
And he's like 2% Boston Terrier. So he's not we thought he was a bug, which was a Boston and a pug.
Right.
So I'm hashtagging him Arthur Miller the bug, but he's not. But one of the names for a pug pit bull is a Puggable.
Oh, that's cool.
Hilarious.
that's fantastic. We will make sure that we link your socials so that our viewers and our listeners can find out what you've got coming up next.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah. And we also want to remind everybody that subscribing is the single most important thing that you can do to ensure that we get more amazing guests like Emily Swallow here today and have these funny moments for you to be able to listen to. So please subscribe. It helps us to continue to grow, but also go check out Emily's work as well. There will be another season of The Mandalorian coming out. We can't wait for it. We're all very excited, and we'll be able to see her more on that, we are sure. But if for whatever reason you are not happy with the content of our show today, please feel free to lodge a complaint with the head of our complaint department, the Armorer from The Mandalorian. Sure, she may not come after you personally. She doesn't have to, but she does have all those extra Mandos to do her dirty work. Plus, she builds some pretty cool stuff from all that Beskar. So yeah, only one copy of your complaint will do the job. She does seem to run a pretty efficient ship over there. And if we ever hear the words from behind us, "This is the way," we will know that we have offended someone greatly and our time on this rock is done. Thank you very much, Emily.
Thank you.
Oh.
Hi, special guest.
Bye.
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 Bye and bye.
Hi and bye. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Enjoy. Goodbye. On behalf of the rest of the hosts of the FSF Podcast, we want to thank you for listening to this episode. If you'd like to be a guest on a future episode, please contact us by means of Twitter or Instagram using the handle @FSFPodcast. Or go to www.fsfpodcast.com and click on the Contact Me link. Thanks again, and hope you enjoyed the episode.